Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining the PR Bunker Podcast, a podcast where we talk about public relations, reputation management, trends happening in the space, and more importantly, talk to the people that are working in the space, in the bunker, working with their clients, helping them with public relations opportunities and challenges. Today, I am here with a seasoned veteran who works in the public relations space, Karen Amster-Young. Karen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on.
I would love for you to tell my audience a little bit about your background and how you ended up in public relations.
I think I was doing public relations and marketing communications before I even really knew what the official name was, back in college and high school even. Just always loved figuring out ways to draw more people, whether it was to a party, an event, communicating the right messages even then, even though I wasn't using the same language that I'm necessarily using, of course, over the years in my career. And I just knew early on, just like there's so many things that some people know early, and I'm still learning things to this day, but that I just knew. I had a passion for the industry and working with companies to figure out how to best either enhance their reputations or increase their visibility, change their reputations, crises that may come along for every company. And I've been doing that since, I guess, I was at Citibank, and then my first big agency position was at Ketchum Public Relations, who really gave me the foundation for a lot of my skills. Went on to a mid-size agency and then launched my own agency, Amster-Young Public Relations, really in the 90s. Which is going back a while now, and had that agency for about 12 years until I merged with another agency and then left for a while, left the industry for a year. And still, though, to this day, I'm working in that capacity, still guiding consultant for many agencies, as well as mostly with Sabrina Levine Communications, who's a colleague and friend of mine for 30 years, who has her own boutique lifestyle agency now.
I know that I've been in the business probably just as long as you have, and one of the things I've noticed is that there's some things that stay the same, regardless if it's 1992 or 2024, and some things that absolutely drastically change, most notably AI and ChatGPT, etc. What are some of the things from your perspective that have been the same and have been consistent, but other things that have changed either for the worse or for the better in your profession?
I think so many people today are forgetting that the core foundation and building blocks of a good PR program are the same from ages ago. So what's changed is the tools available to us, and of course the technology. But what people are forgetting is, if you think about it as like a pie chart, they're putting too much of their budget into these new technologies and forgetting about the core parts of the campaign that should remain the same, which is strategy, message point development, which is understanding your goals and then backing into the tactics. So you shouldn't be thinking first, how can I use social media or how can I use AI? You should be thinking, what are my goals for this campaign? And that doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago or it is today, and then decide how to best achieve those goals. And that's what people are kind of mixing up these days. I keep hearing things like, we want to do just social media advertising and increase our awareness that way. But that's just one tool that should be working with other tools, if that makes sense.
No, 1,000%. I always talk to my clients always about what's the goals you're trying to reach. We never start with the channels.
That's right.
If you come to me and say, we need to be better on LinkedIn, I'm going to say, why?
Right.
Great answer about what has changed over the years. I couldn't agree with you more. It begs the question of talking about strategy. Goals, strategy, tactics. There are some things that probably have stayed the same and tried and true. Maybe some things that have changed. At the core of your strategic thinking for your clients, what are the 2 to 3 things that tend to move the needle for them?
Okay, so you always want to start, like I said before, with your objectives, goals. Then the strategy, which people don't understand, is how are you going to achieve those goals? And then it goes to the tactics, which are, what are the activations? What are the specific events, gatherings with key audiences? It's the activities associated with those strategies. So core strategies always include message point development, who are your target audiences. I'm posing them as questions, but really you have to kind of go look at it as an inverted triangle. So you come the big, what you want to get, how you're going to do it. I mean, how are you going to achieve it, and then this is how you will. I probably could, go on forever about the importance of strategy, but I think that if you don't at least spend time researching your target audiences, understanding who that target audience is, making sure that your strategies are always in line. You write it down that the strategy should be in line with your company's mission and what your brand's purpose is. You'll be off to a good start.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think about the world to which we work in these days, traditional media, advertising, social media, paid media, digital media, SEO, you go down the line. One of the things that you and I briefly talked about over email was brand partnerships.
Yeah.
And I think that, creating those brand connections and leveraging each other's brand equity to move that proverbial needle is becoming more and more relevant these days, if not more so. Love to talk to about brand partnerships, your work in that area, and maybe a couple examples that have been effective.
Yeah, definitely. Before I jump into that, I want to go back to one thing, and that's another thing that hasn't changed is, unfortunately, how we're trying to still educate CEOs, vice presidents of marketing about how critical it is for public relations and communications to be part of the overall marketing plan. It's amazing that this is still going on. I don't think that PR people still to this day value their time and expertise as they should. Even when investors are considering, putting in capital for an emerging growth company, they want to see that. So you have to go the dual path. If you're a new business or a new brand and you're, at that critical point where you're poised to go to the next level, 500,000, then there's the million mark, and then it goes from there, 3 million, 5 million, and they'll be so worried about spending money where you don't always have a clear, immediate, translate into sales, A to B kind of easy to see thing. And that's because it takes time, but you should have benchmarks that you establish that can really clearly show the return on investment in communications and marketing. And those could be tangible assets, things that do have a finite beginning, middle, and end, and then you can have the longer term benchmarks for measuring success of a PR program, which is really important. It shouldn't be just from the hip. It shouldn't be if a client or a prospect says within the first week, when am I going to be in the Wall Street Journal or something similar, it might not be the right match for you, and they might, be better off exploring other ways to kind of get the word out. But it's a really, really important thing that brands start understanding even more so. They've come somewhat far, but they need to really understand the value.
No, sure. I think you hit a pain point that I've dealt with for probably 2 decades.
Right.
People still think I write for the Boston Globe. I've written for the Globe since '97 in public relations, and people don't understand what we do.
You can get excited. You can see how number of clicks and how many, all of that stuff, but there's very important benchmarks you can be setting up with a good strategic PR plan.
Agreed.
In terms of brand partnerships, why it's even more important today is it builds the credibility of what you're trying to, and the engagement with the consumer. So, for example, Sabrina Levine and I worked with a healthy snack food company called Scott's Protein Balls in the last year. They really have unique points of difference, such as being the only refrigerated protein ball, well, when we launched anyway, that was very healthy. And it came from a very genuine place. The founder had struggled with breast cancer and was tired. Her husband realized, and she knew that she was grabbing all these unhealthy protein bars on the go. So when he felt a little helpless during treatment, he's not even in the culinary business or anything related, and he started making these delicious, healthy snacks that she can, and hence the company was born. So the reason I'm giving this as an example is because inherent in that company's mission is the importance of their product truly, credibly, to provide a healthy snack that tastes good alternative for consumers, which is not only right on trend, but it's part of their core mission. So partnerships with companies like SoulCycle or any fitness company or anything that aligns in a non-competitive but complementary way with their brands will move the needle for them, because consumers are seeing them talk the talk and walk the walk.
That's great. No, I think that oftentimes when you think about the C-suite and those that run companies, clearly those that are in revenue generation, sales, CFOs, COOs are at the table. And oftentimes folks like us are at the table as well. If there are issues happening, we're brought in. But being core to a business is, I think, something that you've discussed as a trend as we started this podcast, which I'd love to explore a little bit more. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm more of a business consultant than I am a public relations professional.
Yeah, we don't even use public relations professional anymore. At least, certainly with Sabrina changed the name of her firm to Sabrina Levine Communications because it was public relations, and it clearly doesn't define everything that we're doing. And that's why it's so important, I think, to use very frequently the word as a communications as a catch-all. It entails everything from counsel at the highest CEO level to idea brainstorming and creative to propel a brand, company, or CEO's reputation forward. More and more, I think companies are realizing the value, thank God, of what we bring to the table in terms of that counsel. Yes to every partnership. Let's talk even in terms of nonprofit. I've been working with a foundation for many, many years, bringing in corporate sponsors. Now, sponsorship, of course, is very different than partnerships. There's an overlap, but they are different. That a company is donating to a cause that is important to them, hopefully, and I'll go back to that in a moment. But it's also, let's face it, it's a critical. Every cause is very important, but there's also here. So brands considering aligning with a nonprofit, which is very important, shouldn't be saying yes to everything, or their credibility and their connection with their consumers will dilute if they show up sponsoring every event or partnering with other brands at every event that align with who they are.
Yep. It goes back to my point about being a consultant. I find that even in the early days of social media, there was a reason why folks like us owned it, because it was about the content and the story.
Yes.
And whether you're running a consumer campaign, B2B campaign, working for a nonprofit, it's still about the content and the storytelling aspect to get an audience to take action. And sometimes it spills down to paid media, social media, and other channels. But I always joke that we are like the orchestra lead to any of these campaigns, and it starts with us.
And Don, that's exactly right, because I'll be the first one to always say what are my the skills that I really have and where I need assistance, which is how we should all function, of course. But what I'm saying is that social media, of course I had to get up to speed, go to more classes and things when that came on the scene. But I also knew that at the end of the day, it's just like messaging for like any other part of a PR or marketing program. Nor is that what I want to be doing but that's what other colleagues and team members and social media partners are for. But we discussing what should the caption say. It needs to be consistent with the message points, with the branding, everything from their website to their overall messaging. And a lot of people don't realize that, because you could see a social media post and it's totally disparate and not with going to their website or the press releases. So that's I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. What do you love about the job?
Well, I do like new business development. I like the excitement of pitching new business, even bring on the competition. I'm all about that. I think there's an art and a science to that. I love the research aspect of it, et cetera. But getting away from new business development, which I've had to do my whole career as at the helm of my own agency, and even that, I'm even in that role for others now. But I love the strategy, to repeat that. I love brainstorming, the creativity, thinking out. I had a prospect on the phone recently who said, we find getting publicity, and we've gotten a lot, doesn't move the needle for us. And that, I took that as a challenge. Like, they are not thinking about some of the creative, exciting, fun partnerships they could be doing to better reach their market. They're right. Sometimes you should use your New York Times article in multiple ways. People often think it's just gone the next week, but you could be sending that to investors and other audiences which so many people don't take advantage of the long-term and even a one-time print, online or audio, any kind of earned media coverage. But more importantly than that is convincing prospects sometimes. And like I said, I love that challenge. Here's other things that you probably haven't thought about that are part of our communications program that would really make a difference, that goes beyond media relations, which is an important component, but it's just one. And I think one of the great things about, and you are, at least for me, and I don't want to be self-deprecating, but I knew the things I was good at, and I knew the things early on, and then I'm still learning today. But I think one of the great things early in the career is that, you have this ability to kind of, that your naivete almost makes you, if you're driven, less, not fearful. At least I think not knowing, certain things actually it was good in a way, and I don't mean that I don't know. I hope I'm saying that right, because there's something exciting about your 20s when you're not yet, at all, impacted by mortgages and things, usually more impacted by the ups and downs of the business over decades, if that makes sense. So, but anyway, what do I wish I knew then is to not be afraid to say what you don't know. I actually think I did that, but I would just tell anyone, always advocate for yourself and try to shadow them and say, envision yourself in that role. Can I be doing that? Do I want to be doing that? A lot of times you end up making changes, first of all, at any age, but certainly in your 20s, I think that sometimes an agency speed is not really right. It doesn't mean that you're not great. You might be better as the in-house department in public relations, to jumping from one account to another account. It's just exciting. I just think it's wonderful field that offers opportunities to people to use a lot of their different skills, whether it's focused specifically on social media, whether, you're only in the media relations strategy department. There are departments just dedicated to nonprofits. And so you should explore.
What's next? It seems like it's endless for us.
I love it. I don't, knock on wood, I just want to keep going. I love mentoring, so I'm hoping to do a little more of that, talking to young entrepreneurs. You a little sane, because everyone feels a little down sometimes, whether it's personally or professionally, but continuing to learn new things, even when you have to push yourself a little out the door, I think is very important. It was part of the message of that universal message was part of my book 10 years ago, which was like a one book kind of author here, but it was nonfiction, but not related to public relations. And it's all about getting unstuck and trying new things. So I love finger paints, and sometimes I've been told that they're very good. I'm trying to learn French with my New York voice. Going so well, you should hear me, but at least I can read a menu. I think we're so much writing, editing, even no matter what part of PR that you're in, that a lot of them are to give almost that part of your brain a break.
Agreed.
So art is therapeutic, music, even learning another language so I don't have to say the word strategy again is fun.
Where can people find you online and connect with you?
Okay, well, good question. So Instagram is KYoungWrite, W, and it's spelled with a W, WRITE. I have my own website. I'm also on, of course, Sabrina's website, her boutique agency, SabrinaLevineCommunications.com. And that's it. You can Google me.